Hey, it's time to gather around the water cooler to talk the SNL Hall of Fame.
All right, here we are at the SNL Hall of Fame. We are in the cafeteria. I'm not sure what's. I know there's fluoride in the water, but I don't know what's going on because this week I'm like bearded and fat. I guess this is a bearded fat man episode, considering the two hosts we're talking about. I'm Joe, and I'm sitting here with my partner Shari. How you doing?
Hi, Joe. I am doing good, and I got my water bottle. I'm ready to glug, glug, glug and chat around the water cooler about our latest nominee.
Yes. This is a three-time host who every time he shows up, he really brings his A game. And so we're going to talk about the A game of Zach Galifianakis. I guess he could probably host it each time for each syllable of his last name. Um, he hosted each time, or he hosted three times. And so, Shari, wouldn't you just give us a recap on the podcast?
The last episode of the SNL Hall of Fame, Bill Kenney was joined by Mr. Guru of the Numbers, as our producer JD would say, Mr. Mike Murray, who is the SNL stats guy, if you all don't know, from the Saturday Night Network. And the guy is amazing. Joe, I'm sure you've listened to Mike Murray before. He is incredible. And it was a great episode with Bill Kenney. They broke it all down for us. Like Joe said, Zach had 3 episodes, and they were 3 jam-packed episodes. So they get into all of the sketches, all of the monologues, and it was a terrific time. I learned a lot of things about Zach Galifianakis I did not know. Bill gives us a nice intro to the beginning of his career. So a great episode. If you don't know a lot about Zach, highly recommend listening. It was last Monday, and it was a great episode, so give it a listen. If you don't know that much about Zach, great. If you do know a lot, it's great to listen to, because you might even learn something you didn't know, and you'll get to relive great memories. Terrific episode. All right, Joe, take it away to our next segment.
Yes. As I would be asked, am normally asked who is similar in the Hall of Fame to Zach Galifianakis. And I looked it over, and obviously you have to compare him to fellow hosts. It's kind of hard to compare him to musical guests and whatnot. So anyway, I would compare him to Jim Carrey in the sense that the show gets written around his comedy style as opposed to someone else coming in and just partaking in the sketches. Now, I'm not saying that this is a bad way. I'm just saying that, like, when Alec Baldwin, Steve Martin hosts, Candice Bergen, they are just like another cast member. They're literally like an 11th finger, a third hand, whatever you want to say. They're an extra cast member, just partaking in the sketches, same way Phil Hartman and Jan Hooks would. With Zach, it kind of is like it would be a missed opportunity to just have him be the straight man standing off. By straight man, for anyone who knows, it's not. I feel like I have to explain this. It's the person in the sketch that reacts to the funny person, to the wacky character, the one the audience relates to. Anyway, it would be a missed opportunity if you had Zach Galifianakis play the straight man, and be the serious one going, Kristen Wiig, you're wacky. No, Zach is goofy. He plays goofy real well. He has many shades of what they call cringe comedy. They mentioned it in the podcast. And so he's usually the wacky one in this, and they write to his sensibility. There's a lot of the pre-tapes and everything, so it feels like a Zach Galifianakis show and not really a Saturday Night Live episode. But don't get me wrong, that's not a bad thing. And I feel like with Jim Carrey, it's the same thing, where he's good at doing impressions and being wacky. And there's that chandelier sketch that he did with Kate McKinnon, where you can't do that with other hosts. I don't think you could do that with Alec Baldwin or but to me, it's the person that's similar on the ballot. I'm not sure if there's anyone in the hall, but the person that's similar to him is Jim Carrey. So, and your thoughts?
Is Jim Carrey on the ballot?
I believe so. And
Okay.
if I'm wrong, I apologize. I really thought I did my research. If not, Jim Carrey deserves. But I know he was on the ballot at least at some point. So
That's good. I think that's a good comparison, though. Can you think of anybody who's in the hall currently? I know it's kind of hard because all of those hosts
I
have
mean,
so many years. Can you think of any of
not
the hosts in the hall that he compares to at all?
I I looked it over, and I mean, I really just I don't think so. I'm gonna say no. I'm just gonna tap out and just because when I locked in on Jim Carrey, that's all I could think of. So
All right. Well, then
unless go ahead.
I'll pick up what you're putting down then. I have one from the hall and I have one from the ballot. The one from the hall was hard because like we just said, most of the hosts that are in the Hall of Fame are people like Tom Hanks, John Goodman, years and years of coming on, where Zach's just got the 3 episodes. So I didn't think about consistency. I thought more about sensibility. And I think he has a lot of similarities to Steve Martin. They were both stand-ups at some point in their careers. They both sometimes use music in their sketches. They both can be the wacky, goofy star, like you said, Joe. But I think that both Zach and Steve, when they need to, can pull back as well and be part of the ensemble. I do see what you're saying. They are more like, both of them are more like want to be the center. But I think that they can both pull back too. So I do see a similarity with Steve Martin as far as someone in the hall. Someone on the ballot, that was really easy for me because we just talked about this person and we're going to talk about him soon because they were just on. I think Zach Galifianakis and Jack Black. Oh my God, is
Yep.
that a mouthful? Don't you think they're kind of similar? Don't you think they're a lot
Mhm.
alike?
I was going to get into it. I did say that this is the bearded fat man episode. So yes.
So I do think he's one that definitely is on the ballot. And they're so similar. They're both very physical. They're both large men with beards. That is true, Joe. Good catch. And they both are very wacky and zany. And they also, I think Zach uses, as I said, likes to use music in his sketches as well, not as much as Jack. I mean, Jack is a musician, but he does put the music in sometimes. So yeah, I definitely think those two are similar as well. I guess we're ready to move on to our next segment, huh?
Yes. Moving on to our next segment, which is the final thoughts. And we're going to play that final thought here. So let's take a listen.
So, Mike, this was great. We've talked about some incredible work that Zach was able to do over 3 different hosting gigs. Here's your chance. Why should voters, fans, and the folks around the water cooler vote for Zach Galifianakis for the Hall of Fame?
Well, as always, Bill, have to start with the numbers. I am the host of By the Numbers. He's one of 72 hosts in SNL history to host 3 times. So right away, you get to narrow down the pool. So you can pick one episode. I'm sure you guys have talked about hosts who've done one great episode. Talk about Betty White or Grodin or somebody that's Richard Pryor, people who have done incredible work that stand the test of time with one episode. So he's done 3. He didn't miss. All 3 episodes are very rewatchable. And sometimes SNL is great, but the rewatchability is not as great. So if you weren't there at the time, I'm sorry, but it doesn't translate as much. There are some comedy films like that as well. His do, at least right now in 2025, they're very rewatchable. I think he brings the aspect of a host that we all want. So if you ask an SNL fan, who is the best kind of host? Don't mention any examples. Just, what's the qualities? What's the characteristics? He has all of them. He has his own brand. So he brings that, infuses it into the sketches and the cast. He also has great monologues where are his time to shine without the cast, and is willing to play ball in this playground of SNL and not be the centerpiece. We see that with the best hosts and the worst hosts that have a sketch just kind of centered around them. Let's do a talk show and make them the centerpiece, and the writers will punch it up with great jokes. You can't lose, right? So when we get that, it's great. But most of the time with Zach's episodes, the sketches are not like that. So we have the two runners with the digital short carrying over into the Kathy Lee and Hoda live sketch, and then the Daryl's House sketch, which become the third category in my voting, which is like SNL lore, SNL legend, which I think is what makes you a Hall of Famer. Because look at sports, which we always make the comparisons to on this show, and whether or not they're worthy of the Hall, is those moments are the ones that carry you to the finish line. It's not just the great work on and off the set.
Okay, so those were his final thoughts. I somewhat agree with him. I still just say that SNL plus Zach Galifianakis is a great episode. But it's more of a great Zach Galifianakis episode, and not really a Saturday Night Live episode. You could do best ofs from his episode, but you would know who's hosting. I mean, it's unmistakable. It's a different flavor and everything. Whereas, when the traditional 5-timer Paul Rudd hosts, they usually just blend in well. And they did mention that Zach Galifianakis was in the I can never say the name right, the kissing sketch, the Golden Checks, and and Scared Straight. So Zach did partake in other sketches, but his character in those feels like the Zach's sensibility in that sketch, as opposed to if Paul Rudd was, he would just be the brother-in-law or whatever character they need for him to be. So, and your thoughts?
Yes. Yes, I see where you're coming from, Joe. I see what you're saying. That when Zach comes on, it's Zach's world. And again, just like Jack Black, they kind of take over the show. And I see what you're saying there. However, I thought about Mike Murray's final comments, and he really broke it down. He really did some well thought out points. He said that Zach brings a unique brand that he blends well. So that's where he disagrees with you, and I disagree with you. But Joe, we both think he blends well with the cast, as well as bringing his own unique brand, what Mike said is the first thing. The second thing he said is that he needs to have a legendary sketch, at least one legendary sketch that people still remember. Well, Daryl's House, right, Joe? Classic.
Oh, yes.
Absolute classic. And also, I had forgotten about that Today sketch where he's on there being the psychotic Hoda fan. I just vaguely remembered it, but when Mike and Bill went through it again, I was like, oh yeah, that is totally a classic. So those are two classic sketches. So he really broke it down. And so those were the three things. He blends well, he brings his own brand, and there are legendary sketches that we all remember. I believe he hits all three of those. I'm like Joe, I'm still a little bit on the fence because he has been on only 3 times. However, he could show up. He could become a 5-timer because we didn't think Jack Black was coming back, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there he was.
True.
So you never know when people are going to come back. You never, ever know. Steve Martin, I was hearing on one of my other podcasts that Steve Martin actually took a 10-year break and came back. So you just don't know. The world of Saturday Night Live is very unpredictable. So Zach could come back, and I'm on the fence still, but I think Mike did a really good job of, Mike and Bill, of getting me convinced, and I'm almost there. So I guess we'll see when I fill out my ballot. So that brings us to the final segment, or not the final segment, but because we have
our second half.
You got to excuse us. We're missing our beloved JD today, and so we're improvising, but we're doing okay. So we're going to move on to the final. And did you want to take it away, Joe?
Mm-hmm. So, yes, we're going to be talking about SNL nominee, host nominee, who is on the ballot, Jack Black, and the musical guest was Elton John and Shari.
And the great Brandy Carlisle, who I didn't know that
Yeah,
much about, but she was I thought she was fantastic.
absolutely. Okay, now I think everyone knows what the highlight of that night was. We'll get to that. Well, I promise you. I mean, I will. So, usually JD asks me what the Hall of Shame moment is, and I call it the con. And I will say this, just to get into it, because I want to get all this out of the way. When Jack Black came back to host, it felt like what you would imagine Jack Black would look like after not hosting for over 10 years. He's even heavier. He's got the white beard. And stuff like that. And it felt a little bit like he was trying to act like his younger self. Oh, if you look at Jim Carrey and Adam Sandler, they kind of did their thing in the '90s. They had their persona, and then they did dramatic work, and they did this. And I'm sure Jack Black did do that with like King Kong and such. But now when he comes back to host, it kind of felt like School of Rock again, in the sense that you got this old guy acting, all wild with these young kids, and but it just felt like he was trying to relive his golden age, and stuff like that. Like he's trying to recapture that. And I don't know, maybe I grew out of Jack Black, but it just wasn't working for me. And specifically, the one thing I want to bring up for the con is the one-uppers, the one-upper sketch. It felt like a combination of Kristen Wiig's Penelope with Debbie Downer. The way she would, imagine Penelope doing a one-upper, cut to looking at the camera with a sound effect. It felt like it was that formula, like of both of those. So, Shari, your Hall of Shame moment?
Oh, wow, Joe, you kind of got me scratching my head, but when you bring up the arguments that you brought up, I kind of see what you're saying, but you know what? I did not feel that way. I was with the majority. I was at the Saturday Night Network hot take show that they do right after live on YouTube. And all of us were pretty much in agreement, and we aren't usually, that this was a phenomenal episode. I had a really hard time finding a Hall of Shame moment because I really enjoyed this from from even from the cold open, which was just so, to the final 10-1. I really enjoyed it. My only quibble, and I talk about this every week, I'm not going to give specific names this week, but this is a constant problem with Saturday Night Live that we've talked about, Joe. There's not enough screen time. There's just too many mouths to feed, and there's never enough screen time for every cast member. And every time I watch I don't mean to be plugging the Saturday Night Network, but they also buy the numbers that Mike Murray does. Every week there's somebody who's getting so little screen time that deserves more. So I just hope that they figure this out, that people decide it's their time to go. I hate seeing great cast members with nothing to do who have to sit out. That just seems like such a shame. So that was my only quibble. Otherwise, I really liked this episode a lot, Joe. Well, Joe, feeling the way you did about this episode, do you have a Hall of Fame moment? Do you have a moment that you really enjoyed?
Oh, yes, I do. Wholeheartedly. I mean, Weekend Update. Those jokes were good. Good night, everyone. No, the Weekend Update. The jokes were on point as usual. But let's get into it. I want to slapping my notebook onto this cheap table in the coffee room, in the break room. Let's get into the Ego Woganum segment of what she would say at the White House press. Where, I mean, okay, everyone's talking about it, so let's get. I'm pretty sure. I'm guessing this is your Hall of Fame moment.
It is not, but I did mention it, so keep going, Joe.
Okay, all right. So I want to break it down. So Ego Yovenum, she did. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing that right.
It's Noodum.
The premise was No, don't. Okay, I'll forgive me. I'm just bad with names in general. I have a hard time saying Joe. But the point is, it's what she would say at the White House press. What's it called? The press dinner.
The White House Correspondents' Dinner.
Correspondence dinner. That's the word I was going for. Again, bad with words. Gannon gets me shit. All right, same joke twice. Anyway, it's what she would say at the correspondence dinner. And the idea is, I guess now they're not having one, and this is what she would say if she hosted. And the thing is, usually when someone hosts, they just give like a traditional speech / roast, and she was going to do it in the form of a more energetic. I'm not saying. I mean, forgive me for choosing this example, but Def Comedy Jam type thing, and she broke protocol by doing a weekend correspondent piece in front of the desk. Now, usually I don't like that. I like it when they just come out. And now the other thing I don't like is when you could tell it was going to be a sketch, instead it got cut out, and then now they're just doing the character on update. That usually gets me, because it's not really an update correspondent as much as it's a Saturday Night Live character. Anyway, this is the exception where it's okay to break protocol. She gets out in front of the desk. She's doing her routine. She's cracking up Colin and Michael legitimately. You could tell that this isn't like they heard some of these jokes at read through and at rehearsal and at dress rehearsal, but you still feel like, but there was the energy in the room that she was having with everyone, that she was connecting with everyone, and it got to the point where she was calling out to the audience to say their line, and the audience, I forget how many people were in there, like 200 people collectively. I'm not going to say the word, but they cursed, and that's what I love about it. This isn't a this isn't a pro moment or whatever I call it, like a cheers or jeers from like a 1980s TV guide. This is a Hall of Fame moment. This is a legit SNL Hall of Fame moment where you got a cast member who got the audience to forget that they were on broadcast television and acted like they were in a nightclub, which is what this show is. There's that moment from Jason Reitman's Saturday Night movie, the movie Saturday Night, where William Dafoe, I forget what his character's name is, but he's like, "Show me Saturday Night." This is what it is. This is the Andy Kaufman performance in that, and then I'm sure a bunch of clips from the last 50 years, and this is one of them where it's supposed to feel like you're at a nightclub, you're at the Groundlings, you're seeing stand up, you're seeing the stuff that no one else has seen for the first time, and you're seeing it for the first time. And that's what it felt like. You're in a club. You paid a $2 cover charge. You're in public, and you're not on TV. And she just had that energy, and it just was unique. And yes, I mean, I could keep going on, and I just want to say, just as being an SNL nerd, I don't think there was any other time that the audience cursed other than Captain Beefheart and the Magic Band. When they were so bad, someone from the audience said the S word. I did my research, so I just want to point that out.
Yeah, this is an unprecedented.
Yeah, okay. And I'm going to hand it off to you. I'm sorry if but Shari, your Hall of Fame moment?
No apology needed, Joe. That was perfectly put. It was definitely a Hall of Fame moment. Everybody is still talking about it, and it's been 2 weeks. And I couldn't be happier because I know Mike Murray mentioned this on By the Numbers as well. He did a whole thing about Ego. She's amazing. And I don't know about you, Joe, but I feel like she's never gotten her due. So I feel like this was her shining moment in her entire 6-7 years on the show. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. This is because it's one thing to be a air quotes SNL cast member. It's another thing for the public to know your name. When you go from, that new blonde guy that looks like Dana Carvey to David Spade. This is her moment where she got her name out in the public and separated herself and from the rest of the cast. Now people know who she is, and hopefully her cousin, the sketch that you like, will be making more of an appearance.
Yes, I hope so. I hope she's gonna come back in everything. Uh, we're not going to talk about the John Hamm app for a while, for another week, but when we do, she doesn't get as much time, but she's still there. So maybe they're realizing after 6 years, this woman deserves all the screen time she can get. Again, they need to do
They
something.
mentioned it.
But
They mentioned it twice in the episode. Sorry to cut you off, but in the Trump cold open, they mentioned it, and then someone made a reference to it in Update. So it's still lingering. The effects of that moment are still lingering in the studio.
yes, I agree. And we'll talk about that more when we talk about John Hamm next week. But I want to tell you my Hall of Fame. And Ego was in this, and she was great in this. I'm still singing this song, Joe. This is how much I loved this pre-tape. And I usually go for live sketches. You and I are live sketch people, I feel like. But every once in a while, I know you liked Pip a couple of episodes ago. Every once in a while, I get hooked on a pre-tape. I cannot stop singing Goth Kid on Vacation. I loved that pre-tape so much. I can't stop singing it. It is super catchy. Michael Longfellow absolutely kills it, as he does every time they throw him the ball. I know you talked about the Oedipal arrangements, which Michael just nailed. The guy has so much talent. And when they put him in the right roles, he can just knock it out of the park. In those boots on the beach. And then, of course, Keenan and Ego with their faces while they're sort of reacting to his nonsense, like him on a jet ski, him with the dolphin. I mean, just awesome, just awesome. I loved Golf Kid on Vacation. I just can't say enough good things. Definitely my Hall of Fame moment. I'll probably be singing it today. So that was my Hall of Fame moment. Would you agree? Did you enjoy that one, Joe?
Yes, when you brought it up, it brought me yes. Yes, it was just one of those things where I was so focused on the ego, I forgot. That is. I mean, the whole episode was, to me, fine. It was a very musical base. There was also that musical one where they're on wires talking about sleeping and all that stuff,
Can I
or
say one
sleeping
more?
with each other.
Can I say
Yes,
one more
please. Yeah,
thing?
yeah.
I also loved. I'm not a huge My Chemical Romance fan, but Jack Black coming in with his little ponytails in the outfit, singing the song, the My Chemical Romance song, was terrific. So I think I just needed to add that because Jack gets credit. Ego, Keenan, the random girl who was in the sketch, the little girl, Heidi. I think Jadge was the dad. Everything was great. But I think we're ready to wrap it up now. Are we ready to wrap it up, Joe? Okay.
Yep.
So that's it.
Go ahead.
That's it for Joe and for Shari. And I'm really excited to hear, I love Eminem. He's a Michigan boy.
Yes.
I joke that he's my fiance. I've seen him 4 times live. And I think Andy Hoagland and Bill Kenney are going to do a great job. And then you and I and JD will be back. We're going to break it all down for you. Going to be a great episode. So from Joe and Shari, can we say it together, Joe? Stay thirsty.
Thanks for listening to the SNL Hall of Fame Water Cooler. To connect with Joe and Shari, join our Facebook group at facebook.com/group/SNLHOF. To email the cast, write to snlhofwc@gmail.com. Please subscribe, share, rate, and review the show wherever you get your podcasts. Podcasts and such.
With so many options, Why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.